Have you ever felt like you were on top of the world, only to have it all come crashing down in an instant? Sometimes it takes just one fall to change everything. But here's the truth. It's not the fall that defines you. It's the courage to rise again. Welcome to Life's Spark Narratives, where real stories of pain, resilience, and rebirth remind us that no matter how dark life gets, there's always light waiting to return. Today, we're sharing a story about a man who had it all figured out, had a steady job he was proud of, big dreams that fueled his every move, and an endless passion that made him feel unstoppable. He had a blueprint for his future, and he was building it brick by brick. But in a single, gut-wrenching moment, it all fell apart. The plans he'd so carefully laid out, the confidence he'd built over years, the future he saw so clearly, all of it gone. He felt lost, adrift in a sea of confusion and defeat. The vibrant sounds of his life faded, and the nights turned into an oppressive silence. And in that silence, one question kept echoing in his mind over and over again. Why? Why did everything fall apart? He found himself at rock bottom, a place he never imagined he'd be. The world he knew had vanished, and in its place was a void filled with doubt and despair. He was surrounded by the wreckage of his ambitions, and for a while, he couldn't see a way out. Every morning was a struggle, a battle just to get out of bed. The person he used to be felt like a distant memory, a stranger from another life. He looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the reflection staring back at him. The fire in his eyes had been extinguished, replaced by a deep, hollow emptiness. He felt completely and utterly defeated. No one stands upright after a devastating fall, and he didn't either. He gave himself permission to be broken. He allowed himself to feel the full weight of his pain, to cry until there were no tears left, to question everything he thought he knew, and to simply pause to exist in that stillness. It wasn't about giving up. It was about honoring the wound. But somewhere in that space between the searing pain and the profound quiet, a shift began to happen. He realized something powerful, a truth that would change his perspective forever. The fall didn't happen to destroy him. It happened to awaken him. This realization was like the first ray of light after a long, dark night. It wasn't sudden, but it was steady. He stopped asking the universe, "Why me?" and started asking a much more empowering question. What is this trying to teach me? That single change in perspective was the turning point. Because true healing, true growth, begins the moment you stop fighting against your reality and start learning from it. He understood that this painful chapter wasn't just a random event. It was a lesson, a difficult but necessary curriculum designed just for him. So, he started over. Not with a grand, dramatic gesture, but with one small, deliberate step at a time. He didn't rush the process. He simply refused to stand still. He focused on the smallest victories, making his bed in the morning, taking a walk outside, reaching out to a friend. Each tiny action was a quiet act of rebellion against the despair that had held him captive. He began to rebuild, piece by piece. He worked on rebuilding his confidence, not by pretending he was invincible, but by acknowledging his vulnerability and finding strength within it. He rediscovered his purpose, not by chasing old dreams, but by listening to the new whispers of his heart. He reignited his will to try again, knowing that the outcome was uncertain, but that the effort itself was what mattered. Failure transformed from his greatest enemy into his most profound teacher. Every setback was no longer a sign to quit. It was a lesson in what didn't work, guiding him closer to what did. The pain he had endured began to forge a new kind of strength, one that was deeper and more resilient than anything he'd known before. The loss he had experienced turned into wisdom, giving him a clarity and empathy he never possessed. And slowly, painstakingly, the broken pieces of his life started coming back together. Not as they were before, but forming something new, something stronger and more beautiful. He realized that life isn't about avoiding the falls, it's about becoming someone who knows, without a doubt, that they can always rise again. Looking back, he finally understood the profound truth of his journey. If it wasn't for that devastating fall, he would have never found his true self. He would have continued living a life that was good, but not the one he was truly meant for. Sometimes life has to break you down, not out of cruelty, but to lovingly rebuild you into the person you were always destined to become. The breakdown was, in fact, a breakthrough. It cleared away everything that wasn't authentic. everything that wasn't truly him, to make space for his most genuine, resilient self to emerge. The person who rose from the ashes was not the same one who had fallen. He was stronger, wiser, and more aligned with his true purpose than ever before. If you've ever fallen, if you've ever felt lost, broken, or defeated, remember this story. Remember that your story isn't over yet. The chapter you are in right now does not define the entire book of your life. There is still so much unwritten. If this message touched your heart, please like this video. Subscribe to Life's Spark Narratives for more stories of hope and resilience, and share this with someone who might need to hear it. Remind them and remind yourself that there is always hope after the fall. Remember, your fall doesn't define you. Your rise does. Thank you for watching.